My Lords, I rise to speak to Amendment 69A in my name and also to very briefly express my support for all of the other amendments in this group. They've been very ably and clearly introduced. And I was having something of a flashback to the Pension Schemes Bill, which was the first time I spoke in this room. And that was, I believe, the first time that climate was ever appeared in any finance bill. And the noble lady Baroness Sherlock did a great job of supporting me through that when I had no idea when to speak. And she was giving me a nudge with her elbow. And, you know, that was 3 years ago. We've now got to the point where we're trying to get nature to join climate. And that's so obviously necessary. What my Amendment 69 does, is, as you might expect from a Green, is go further. And it's based on the principle, which I don't know if the noble lady, the Minister, if she's answering, is able to respond to this, but the fact is the economy, the financial system, is a complete subset of the environment. There is no financial system on a dead planet, to amend the phrase. And climate and nature, all of those amendments are clearly essential. But we actually know that that doesn't fully cover the way in which we are breaking the limits of this planet. And so that's why this amendment, refers to the planetary limits as well established by the Stockholm Institute. There's 9 planetary limits. I've made specific references to 4 of them, 2 of which are covered in other climate and biosphere integrity, but also novel entities and biochemical flows. Novel entities is one of those phrases that doesn't really trip off the tongue and perhaps is not very clear. I'm thinking of calling it the 3 Ps, plastics, pesticides and pharmaceuticals, which doesn't entirely cover all the ground, but at least gives a sense of what it's talking about. Last year, peer-reviewed journal by the absolutely acclaimed Stockholm Institute said we have massively exceeded the planet's capacity to deal with all of those things that our financial sector is ultimately funding. Plastics, pharmaceuticals, pesticides, and related substances. Biochemical flows, essentially we're talking about nitrogen, fertilisers, phosphorus, all of those things that we all know focus so much on about the River Wye. Again, the finance sector is funding destruction exceeding beyond those planetary limits. Now, it might be said, and I can well imagine people saying, well, how are we going to measure this? Well, the way this amendment is written, what I'm putting forward is the idea that companies have to show they are operating within the limits of the planet. If you want money, if the finance sector is going to fund things, then it has to operate within the limits, because we all know now, on climate and nature, but so many other things, companies, operations, activities are being financed that are destroying the planet on which we are all absolutely dependent. We have, of course, as a country like every other country in the world, agreed to the Sustainable Development Goals. 7 years away. We're not on track within our own boundaries. No country is on track to meet those Sustainable Development Goals. And if some miracle were to occur and an amendment, something like this were put in, that would actually take the UK financial sector significantly towards being compliant with the Sustainable Development Goals to which it's signed up to. Now, I'm not, of course, expecting that to happen, but what I would say is this amendment is starting to do, and I said on the first day of committee I was in the Genetic Technology Bill, and there I was talking about how so many scientists are coming to me and saying, how do we get our understandings through to the government? We actually have to join up science and economics. This is the kind of systems thinking that if we're going to have a sustainable world, we absolutely need to have. So, I've got a saying that Greens lead and others follow, and I'd invite the committee to think back and think about when Greens in your Lordship's House first started talking about climate and first started talking about nature. And it was those radical Greens over there with their radical ideas. Now this has come into the mainstream. I'd put to your Lordship's committee that the issues that I'm putting on the table today will very quickly be mainstream. And if the UK wants to be world leading, as we so often hear, bringing the planetary limits within the framework of our financial sector would truly be absolutely extraordinarily world leading.